what is C&B going to do in dealing with TARP? And I did mention before that we had participated in this in 1934, and no, I was not there. That was my grandfather, this man's son. We are not going to participate in the TARP. It's not that we wouldn't like to. We've applied for $20 million, and we were approved for that. But the final decision is whether we will sell part of the bank to the government for a short period of time. And that capital we could leverage 13 times, and that's a lot of money. It's $250 million. And as I mentioned to you, $1.4 billion. And we could do that very safely because we would have the right amount of capital, just around 8.5% or 7.5% or 8%. But unfortunately, this is a very political subject. And this time around, they have put restrictions in reaction to Congress, who's reacting to the various levels of outrage by the people that call them. And this is too bad because the limitations are things that you as an individual wouldn't accept, and certainly we as a corporation are not going to accept. And there are frankly three and maybe four. The first one is that we would not be able to pay bonuses. So, we could probably live with that, but it was not a very progressive idea. Secondly, and far more important here, is they said, well, so long as we have the preferred stock, we get our 5% preferred, but we want you to build capital so that you can redeem the stock in 5 years. In order to do that, we don't want you to raise your dividend for 3 years, and then thereafter, no more than 3% a year, which is just barely inflation. Now, this steps right in the middle of our value proposition with our owners. We have stated over and over again, our purpose is to grow this, not to sell it. We grow it to own it, and the owners get to share in current earnings known as dividends. And in our company, it's about 1/3 of our earnings we distribute out to the owners. Unfortunately, about 1/3 of our earnings go off in taxes. So what's left is a little over 1/3, actually, is left on the table to support the growth of our company for the next year. And it's completely unacceptable to say that our owners cannot participate in the growing earnings of our company as we grow in the service of this community. And that's fairly considerable, as a matter of fact, because our projections going forward would represent almost 50% of the dividends that we would be denied that we could pay to our owners. So that was pretty much a showstopper for me, because if the rest of the world were growing their companies to share in the current earnings, then we wouldn't have had the speculative bubble of the dot-com era, and we wouldn't have had the speculative bubble here, because everything was driven by the euphoria of markets rather than whether anybody was making any money or not. Number 4, there was a clause which is the government inserted, and which is really beyond the pale of reasonableness, was simply a unilateral ability by the investor, here the Treasury, to change any and all terms and conditions of this arrangement, this contract, this agreement, to conform with the whim of Congress. So that places the Congress of the United States right in the middle of the management of this bank. It really is like handing over the keys, handing over the keys to the airplane. So it's one thing to own the airplane, it's another thing to go down the aisle, sit in the left seat and take off and fly it, and you have no training. And having been a pilot for 46 years, a professional pilot and a military pilot, you certainly don't want somebody that owns the airplane without that experience to go down, sit in the left seat and take off, at least not with you on it. And finally, this is the element of the unintended consequences. The media, they have characterized anybody that has accepted this money as somehow either needing it or not deserving it, or receiving a gift and then not properly accounting for it. And all of that is, as I've explained, frankly not true. It's just people don't understand there's a lag effect and there's a leveraging effect, which pretty well makes it impossible to track exactly the government's investment, which is frankly small relative to the use of depositors' deposits to leverage the circumstances. But in their effort to impress you with the news, they have pretty well turned this program on its head. So if not for 1, 2, and 3, certainly for number 4, and we're in the process right now of writing again to the Treasury saying we would like to participate, but under these circumstances and these conditions, which are essentially you can't tell us what to pay our people. They're very talented. They should be earning exactly, and we have it set up so they earn exactly what they produce. You can't tell us what to pay the owners because we've raised the dividend in the last 6 years 14% a year. That's a lot more than 3, and that's a lot more than 0, and we've been raising the dividend since 1933 fairly consistently. We're not going to change the practice for that. Number 3, we really don't need this. So therefore, why do we put up with the unilateral conditions of the government coming in and running our business, or suffering the brickbats of the press for having participated? So our prospects are very bright. One community working together. And if you're okay, depositor, if you're okay, borrower, I'm okay. And we're going to do this together, and we will prosper, and we too will get through this.